what is the role of the American P&I Club in the energy transition?
So I think that the role of the American P&I Club is within the context of being a member of the international group, and from the perspective of what we cover generally is liabilities of ship operators. So the overarching goal for the international group and P&I clubs is to support the owner through the energy transition within the perspective of third-party liabilities.
Okay, great. And what are some of the biggest challenges shipping is facing in the energy transition?
So I think there are a lot of challenges that we're facing, but I think from our perspective, from a liability insurer, we are looking at the side of risk assessment, the side of the extent of liability. So from where we are standing, one of the biggest challenges we think is how are the expected liabilities going to fit within the current legal framework. We think that there's a lot of gaps. We think that from the perspective, for example, of pollution on alternative fuels, they don't exactly fit within the current policies, not only from an international convention perspective, but also from the perspective of safety policies on board. So for example, a lot of these types of fuels are already carried as cargo. There are policies and there's a framework within the safety side of things on how to manage these fuels from a carriage of cargo perspective, but not from use as alternative fuels, and that impacts bunkering, that impacts accidents, that impacts, for example, how we dealt with ever before atmospheric contamination. Not all of the fuels fit perfectly within the conventions. For example, let's take a look at nuclear, the use of nuclear propulsion. Well, nuclear risks are excluded from P&I liability. Now, the good thing about the rules that relate to P&I is that they are built to actually adapt to the needs of the ship owner, and in that respect, that includes liabilities, and that protects stakeholders all over the world and facilitates global trade. But we will have to do a little bit more research, and we're going to have to do a lot more work in terms of examining the where the lines will be drawn. Will the liabilities rely on fault? Will perhaps the new technologies and the creators of new technologies have to be pulled into these liabilities regimes? So these are all unanswered questions right now. Now, from a P&I perspective, obviously we are trying, and we will be inclusive, but that safety net that we create has to be done within the parameters of logic and responsibility. So I think from our perspective, the legal regime and the liability regime and the way that it's going to work within the, creating the proper infrastructure and protecting our operators, but also providing a framework of protection for parties all over the world. I think that's the biggest challenge from our perspective.
Great, thank you. What are some of the biggest issues seafarers are facing today?
Okay, for seafarers, I can see they are facing a lot of issues nowadays. I just name a few. First one, now according to a statistical report, more and more seafarers, they are having some mental health problems like anxiety, depression, and the social isolation, etc., etc. This is because of the nature of the demanding working on board the ship, long period away from their home and their family. So, and also the workload, the bad weather, and also the piracy, armed robbery, all these kind of things actually give a lot of pressure to the seafarers who are working on board the ship. So this way may affect the ship safety if the mental health issue could not be tackled. Yeah.
Thank you. A lot of ship owners have trouble, they say they have trouble finding skilled seafarers. What would you tell them?
Okay, what we can see, there's still a lot of skilled seafarers available in the market. So as a ship owner, you may need to think about how you establish your recruitment strategy and also your recruitment strategy. So make sure your salary scale you pay to your seafarers is benchmarking to the market rate. and also try to invest more on training and have the seafarers develop their career. Of course, welfare is also very important. You need to have a very attractive welfare system to attract seafarers and also keep the talents with you.
What are the biggest challenges facing the shipping industry as a whole in the years ahead?
So there are going to be three challenges that the shipping industry is going to grapple with. So A, environmental regulation, the need for abiding by stricter rules and the targets set by IMO up to 2030 and 2050 is going to force shipping companies to adopt cleaner technologies. Second, around digitalization, the need for adopting digital tools such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and more automation is going to be required to enhance efficiency. But being able to do this seamlessly whilst ensuring cybersecurity is going to really be the challenge. And last but not least, geopolitical conflict. So political instability in regions as well as trade conflict, these all create uncertainty and could disrupt the key supply chain routes.
Great, thank you. The second question, how do you see the maritime industry in Singapore evolving over the next 5 years?
So Singapore, of course, has been rated the #1 maritime hub, and I think it will continue to retain this position, and it will continue to adapt and keep pace with all the different global trends that are impacting the shipping industry. But specifically, it will look to push environmental solutions. So Singapore will force shipping companies as well to adopt clean technologies. With regards to digitalization as well, Singapore is really at the forefront, so adopting artificial intelligence for things like predictive maintenance, cargo management, route planning, as well as port operations, automating that to increase reliability and safety. These are all going to be very important for Singapore to keep up with enhancing and continuing to optimize itself as the maritime hub. But last but not least, Singapore is also very focused on retaining and upskilling its maritime workforce. So whether that is around reskilling the traditional maritime workforce to understand the new fuels, the new technologies that exist, but also a focus on data science and digital skills for the future maritime workforce. These are a few things that Singapore is probably going to spearhead in the coming years.
What are some of the challenges shipping faces in the energy transition?
I think the biggest challenge is trying to figure out what the fuel of the future looks like, right? I think we're aware there's going to be a multi-fuel future, but at the moment, without having a clear winning fuel, ship owners are really finding it difficult to make their investment decisions. And with that, it's kind of delaying the decarbonisation of the industry. So the way that we can overcome that, I think, is by having a price on carbon that would level the playing field between lower carbon fuel and a conventional fuel and make that decision easier. As we think about that, think around how we would categorize that. I think the future fuel safety has got to be the #1 thing that we think about, right? Safety of the environment and safety of the crew. We need to make sure that they're well equipped and understand how to handle these future fuels. We've got to think about scalability as well. How do we scale these products? So it's good to have test cases of future fuels, but we've got to think about how we really build these value chains. We've got to think about affordability, like the price, right? The price on carbon does help to level that playing field, but a lot of these future energy fuels are going to need green electric to make them 100% zero carbon or as close to as possible, and that's expensive. And we're also not the only industry that are trying to decarbonize, so we've got to be mindful of all that. So there's a lot of complexity there. Lastly, I think infrastructure is the one thing that people forget about, and I mentioned it on the panel earlier. The infrastructure build-out costs for some of these renewable fuels is going to run into billions or trillions of dollars, and we need to act now to make sure that we can start that process.
In your view, which alternative fuels are the most promising?
So I think at Chevron we believe the future of energy is lower carbon, and we have a strategy to enable that. So we have a new energies business that we've stood up that focuses on hydrogen, carbon capture, utilization and storage, and offsets and emerging. But our strategy also encompasses lowering the carbon intensity of our base business. So first off, we think that the conventional fuels we have today have a long time to come, or a long runway, and we're decarbonising our assets. So on a well-to-weight basis, you get a lower carbon product with a conventional liquid fuel. I think biofuels are very, very important as well, and it's a drop-in fuel, so no retrofit costs, so a good solution for ship owners, and it's available today. But biofuels, we talk about how scalable are they? Well, we're working on technology as well to make sure that we can use different feedstocks in the bio space. Chevron was the second largest supplier of biofuels last year in Singapore, so we do have that presence and are available to supply that product today. As I think about the future, I think methanol, ammonia, LNG, all of these fuels have a part to play in the mix. It just depends on, which can be handled safely, which can be handled and scaled appropriately, and the whole industry is trying to figure that out at the moment. So we are watching and making sure that we're in a position to stand those value chains up as and when we can.
Last question.
Yeah.
What does the future of the shipping industry look like to you?
So I would say one word is exciting, right? I think there's a lot of change, a lot of moving parts in shipping at the moment. I think collaboration's a big part of what we're doing at the moment. That makes it very exciting. Shipping is a relationship business, and we're now collaborating with our partners and with non-profits and trying to solve some of these complex challenges. So it's going to be a more complex world as we go forward, but it's an exciting world, and we're a very, very adaptable industry. So I think it's going to be a good few years to come for sure.
What are some of the current trends in the maritime startup industry?
Ooh, quite a few, I'd say, at this point. Some that I could list out are sustainability, carbon capturing, optimization, crewing, and democratizing sort of access to the different workforces for crew. Digitizing every different part of the industry, from shipbuilding to different forms of workflow. So that's just to name a few, I'd say. Yeah.
Are there many challenges in finding funding for maritime startups?
I think it's getting a little bit better because people are paying more attention to the industry, especially post-pandemic, when the supply chain was so apparent and the way in which it worked became more mainstream knowledge, I'd say. So there's more funding out there, and I think that owners are opening up more CVC arms, which help supply innovation and funding within the industry. So yes, I think it is challenging to find capital still, but it's getting better, and I hope it continues to do so. Yeah.
How do you see the industry evolving over the next few years?
I just see it getting more and more collaborative, which is really exciting, between owners and funders and agents, and I mean everybody. I think, even with like regulations, everybody is embracing the innovation that's taking place, because it ultimately is making the industry more efficient, more sustainable, and so every year I feel like is an even better year for collaboration, and it's exciting to me.